Good day to all of you. So, on behalf of SLIIT-Hemas Uni, I warmly welcome all of you for today's session. So, today's session is about psychological first aid, and this session is specifically to help students and anyone who is interested in knowing some of the key skills required to assist anyone who may have recently gone through floods. In fact, displacement because of floods and landslides and other, the recent natural disasters that we went through. So, without further ado, let me introduce today's speaker, Dr. Nilanga Abeysinghe, who is currently serving as the head of academics at SLIIT-Hemas Uni. So he's a counselling psychologist with over, I think, more than 2 decades of experience in providing counseling as a practitioner and also as an academic. So I hope this session would be beneficial for everyone who is in attendance today. So over to you, Dr. Nilanga.
Good evening to everyone, and thanks for joining this session. Session was the result of our own students reaching out to us, expressing the interest of and asking us, like, how can we support those who have been affected either by floods, landslides, or in many different, or not because they have personally experienced anything, but because what they have seen, and probably because of their relatives are affected. So this was the reason why we decided, okay, we need to have it much faster or much quicker than this was intended to be held. So psychological first aid is something that was developed about more than a decade ago, definitely. And we introduced this around 2012, 2011 to Sri Lanka. I was one of the translators when we translated this to Sinhala, and it was also translated to Tamil language. And a team of us worked together to develop the psychological first aid Sinhala guidelines, and also to adapt into the Sri Lankan context. And we have a group of trainers who have developed over the years to introduce this concept. And I've seen so many workshops happening online and physical workshops to train people who are interested in providing psychological first aid in this crisis situation. And every year, or whenever I have to do this in the presence of a crisis or in the aftermath of a crisis situation in Sri Lanka, I wish like I wouldn't have to do this at least for a couple of years. But the reality is that, like, we end up doing this over and over again because there's a need, and it happens far too often than we want. So when WHO and a group of organizations introduced psychological first aid, they wanted to give us something or introduce something to the public that can be used by everyone, including children, in order to support people who are in distress, in order to support people who are struggling with their emotions and who have experienced either natural disasters or man-made disasters. In the current context, we are facing a natural disaster that came in many different ways. And let's see how we can use this. So this is a long training. If I were to do it physically, normally we used to say we need at least 3 hours to do this sort of a training physically. But since it's an online thing, I'm trying to give you the basics to get started. And then whenever or if ever you get the chance to go through a proper training, please do that. Don't wait till a crisis. But today I'm going to share some of the important points that will be useful if you decide and when you decide to go out and help people who are in need, to support them. And also when you encounter someone whom you meet even without the intention of purposefully going out and then supporting people who have gone through various difficulties in the and who are going through various difficulties in the aftermath of this disaster situation. So reaction to loss. If you look at this picture, what you will notice is that various people are showing different expressions in this picture. One person is lying down and motionless probably. The other is crying, seated. Those are two adults, as far as I see. Then you see a little child, once again crying. Then someone probably cursing the Almighty, the gods, like, why did this happen? Sort of that's that reaction, anger. And the one in the red cap, the red cap was not intentional, but the red cap is sort of lost and trying to figure out what's happening and not really having an idea or not really connecting to the reality that's going on. So these are various reactions that you will see in young and old. And it's important to understand that these reactions are not going to be uniform. And okay, if you are sad and if you are under stress, you will show these reactions. Not at all. Everyone will be unique. We've had experience sometimes. You speak to people and families, and they'll say, "Well, they'll look at the much more naughty and sort of children with disturbing behaviors and say, those are the troublemakers." And then they'll point out one kid. You see, now this kid is no trouble at all. But when you really talk, that kid is the one who needs help because he's isolating himself, or she's isolating herself from the rest of the people and trying to get into a cocoon for protection or to safeguard own self. So it's important to understand as to what is it that the person in front of me want. What is it the people in this vicinity, in this place, are really in need of, because their reactions are going to be different from person to person. And the idea of psychological first aid is to make sure that you make a difference in the people that you meet, in whatever context that is. It may be in a camp, it may be while helping people clean up their homes, it may be maybe while you're waiting in a queue, or maybe while they're waiting in a queue to get some food rations. It may be while cleaning the roads. So various scenarios, various situations where you will meet people and they're probably waiting with all the pressures in their head, not knowing whom to talk to and how to talk to. And you might be astonished as to how much people want to say if there is someone to listen to them. So this training is about how do I capacitate myself to be that person who can be there as a helper. So big difference. Even before I might mention this again, but let me tell. This is not counseling. You may be a counselor. You may be trained in counseling. You may be going through a counseling course. Maybe that you have psychological counseling as part of your degree program. But psychological first aid is different from counseling. This is something that you will do in the aftermath of a crisis situation within a very brief period. And it's best for you to not to mix up counseling and psychological first aid. And I was talking a little while ago someone who is also training and who has very recent experiences also in the current context, working with people providing psychological first aid, especially people who are going through counseling and psychology courses have a tendency to mix up counseling and PFA. Try not to do that, not to offer that in the same context even. Psychological first aid can be the first step that you take to help a group of people one by one within a quick period of time. And then counseling is a much more long-term process, which everyone will not need. If you listen to Brother Pianjali, who spoke last week also, and she very specifically mentioned most of the people will not need counseling as such. But psychological first aid is something that everyone can benefit, and you can make a difference with that. So that's why this training is offered, or this introductory session is offered to you. So first of all, this is not something that you give forcefully, not something that you say, well, I'm here to give you psychological first aid, so come, let's talk. It's non-intrusive. And it can be given in many different ways. It can be just playing a game, keeping the basic concepts of psychological first aid in mind, or helping someone to organize their home. And amazingly, you will realize how much the caregivers, the people who are supporting, people who are running shelters, how much are they stressed out and how much they can benefit from psychological first aid. So try to provide your support in practical ways so that each and every person that you meet will benefit from it. Sensitively assessing the needs and concerns. As I said before, various people will have different concerns and they are all important. And we sometimes may tend to have the idea, well, that's not that much of a big problem. But for that person, maybe a child has lost their notes. And that's a massive problem for that particular child. Or maybe lost their toy. And you might think, well, he or she did not lose her home, or maybe not a loved one. But those are all concerns. So try to be sensitive to those needs and concerns of people. And everything should start with addressing basic needs, and that's what's happening in most of the support activities that are happening at the moment, providing water, food, and shelter. These are primary things, and psychological first aid can happen in the context of providing these basic needs. And without basic needs, it's very difficult for people to think of other responses. Those of you are more aware of the Maslow's pyramid will remember, some of the ones are highlighted by him as basic needs. So, or physiological needs sometimes, so think of them. And then not everyone will want to talk to us. You might go with great intentions, with a lot of energy, and that's what we've seen in the last, couple of days. People go with a lot of energy thinking, I'm going to give them psychological first aid. But they tend to get disappointed. And their reactions show that, why did I come? No one wants to talk to me. Or no one wants to, I don't see that people are benefiting. I'm not doing any miracle. Yes, we are not doing any miracle, but being there itself is a massive support. So listening, but not pressuring people to talk. Sometimes it's a matter of just being seated with them, or maybe playing a board game, or maybe just playing a simple game, not trying to link it to any psychological concept. For example, if they if you make paper rockets and let them fly away, as psychology students, you might think, I'm sorry, I'm referring to psychology students because the majority of them are psychology students, but I know there's others also, and you don't have to be a psychology student. That's the beauty of it. The psychological first aid concept was introduced so that you don't need a professional, you don't need a counselor. Before that, most of us can do this. I said even children can be trained so that they can support others. So sending out a paper rocket might symbolize something in a psychological context, but it doesn't have to be in this. But engaging with them can help them. So don't pressurize them. And during this activity, people will talk to you if they want to. If not, let them be with you. Comforting people and helping them feel calm. That's a very important thing. Sometimes just being there and your presence, your calm presence will have an impact on them rather than you being charged up and you being energized and you being going there with a lot of anxiety probably because they are anxious. So try to let them benefit through your calm presence. Be there. They might be angry. Remember that they are angry and they might scold at you. That's not something that they do with intention of hurting you. That's them getting their pressure out of their system. They might, if you like most of the people who sometimes give voice cuts, they might say the food is bad, the shelter is bad, the place is bad. People are just coming and leaving. They're not giving any anything that's intangible or that's helpful. That anger is also about their frustration and their pain. So be there, be gentle. Don't take it personal. It is not personal when they scold and blackguard you in this context. So comfort them. Helping people connect to information, services, and social support. So this is the third most important, the third thing in psychological first aid. The three things: look, listen, link. So linking people is an important thing. Linking people to their loved ones. Linking people to information that can be helpful, from what to do and what not to do, what medicines to take, or where to get medicine, where to get water, where to get services, and to social support networks. That's very helpful. And protecting people from further harm. So in this sort of a situation, people will be much more vulnerable than they are in their normal situations. So in this new context, there are people who are more vulnerable towards being abused or being harmed by various ways, either by something that you do or by others do, or by neglect. So protecting those people who are vulnerable from any further harm that could come their way. It may be children, it may be women, it may be the elderly, it may be even men who might be vulnerable at this context. So all sort of people, anyone who is vulnerable, what can you do to protect? By listening to them, connecting with them, and then linking them to support services. Hope I'm making sense in what I'm talking, though I'm rushing through these slides also in a way. So to do this, please remember you need to first take care of yourself. So when our students contacted us and said, we want to go out and help others, one message that I gave them, and I would always give, first take care of yourself. That's very important. You need to be ready. You need to capacitate yourself to support others. So self-care is very important when you go out and try to help others. Because if you are empty as a cup, it's very difficult for anyone else to benefit. So you need to make sure that you are okay, or you're more than okay. What can you do to help yourself? What can you do to relax? What support do you need? And do not be shy. Sometimes after talking to people, you might feel drained. It's not a sign of weakness. If you understand that, you need support, that's a sign of strength. That's a sign of being wise and knowledgeable, being someone who's open to growing and supporting others from that point onwards. So please take care of yourself in the process of helping others. And it's not just for this, in the immediate aftermath of, crisis situations, but it's also in our day-to-day lives. All right. So with that sort of a long introduction, let me introduce you to the PFA principles. So first of all, what you're doing, the preparation. And then we have, because we need to get ready, we need to prepare ourselves before we can do anything. And then the three big things: look, listen, link. Look, listen, link. So the three L's is something for you to remember. If I may say in single, හොඳින් බලන්න මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ, මෙතන ආරක්ෂා සහිතද, මෙතන හොඳයිද, කාටද උදව් අවශ්‍ය. And then last වෙලා ඉන්න උන්ට අහුම්කම් දෙන්න. අන්තිම එක උන්ව සම්බන්ධ කරන්න ආයතන එක්ක, පුද්ගලයෝ එක්ක, with information, දැනුම නැත්තම් news and all the information that's going to be helpful to them. So what does prepare means? What do you mean by prepare? How do we prepare? First of all, before you go, that's one reason why I had to stop or discourage when students ask me to say that they want to go. I said, let's do this preparation first. Learn about the crisis event. I think we've got a lot of information about the crisis event, but try to learn about the place that you're going. What sort of a place am I going to support? Because you need to have that information. You need to know about the crisis situation. It can be chaotic and it can change very fast. So getting as much information is very useful as to who is there, how many are there, who is coordinating, what support do they need, what services are available at this moment, who is helping them, who is running the show. That's important. You must have seen on media where there are conflicts between parties who are trying to provide support. And you might think, well, how nasty people, they went to help, and they are not welcoming and accepting their support. Well, as people who go from outside, it's very important not to disrupt the existing systems. So prepare yourself, connect, talk to them. We are bringing these things, or we are coming to you to support. How can we help you? And learn about the safety and security. It's very important to connect with them and to find about the ground situation. That's about your safety, your security, as well as the people whom you are trying to assist. So that preparation is crucial. So please remember that. Before you go to any place, it may be within Colombo, it may be out of Colombo. It may be a place that you think, well, that's not a big deal. That's not a dangerous place. I can go and easily help. That might not be the case. So please find out what preparation is needed. What information do I need? And that's going to play a big role. And whenever possible, what precisely happened as a question to ask. Where, when, how many were affected? So these are the things. I will probably share these, slides also so that you can go through them, because I know I will not have time to run, take you through all 30 odd slides. Available services and safety and security. Yeah. and the readiness. Consider your health and personal situation. There may be, like, especially if you're going out to a place to stay for a couple of days, are you taking any medication? Is your medication with you? These are very practical things that you can take for granted. Then what other health conditions have you got? And for how long can you cope up with it? If you are not concerned of yourself, it will put your life in danger, yourself in danger, and put the people whom you are trying to support. It's like, someone is, okay, bad example in a way, but someone is drowning and you try to jump into the water to help, forgetting that you can't swim, or like, you have not been trained, so or not knowing for how long you can struggle with water, how much of strength you've got. So try to know your personal situation and try to work in pairs or in teams rather than working in isolation, rather than working alone. That's another important thing, because we've seen most of the time people who try to provide support get in trouble because they are in isolation and they don't have that connection, when no one will know when they're in trouble. So work in pairs, work in teams whenever possible, and ensure that the group or organization that you're going with can provide you with the necessary equipment, safety equipment. It may be like, or other things that might be useful to, support the people that you're trying to help with, and that they'll support with coordination. And you might be wondering, well, am I going to do psychological first aid? Well, yes. It's mostly about linking people and listening to them and supporting them psychologically. But this cannot be taken in isolation from physical support and physical safety, because you go as a person with a mind and body, and that body needs care, and also the people whom you're supporting. So that readiness is crucial. Remember that. And also, like, your outward appearance will play a big role. So one thing that, most of the, like in the previous days when, psychological first aid providers who went there for the first time, some guidelines that were very useful is even your attire matters. So not like some very practical tips. Don't go there with, flashy clothes, or because you'll be meeting people who probably have lost almost everything. And you might be meeting people from different cultural, religious backgrounds. So respect, or showing respect, you definitely respect. That's why you're going to help them. But showing that you respect is important. Showing that you care is important as much as you care. So few things that sometimes, was advised, like, you even try not to go with sunglasses and shorts and all that. Might not be the best thing, might not be the most appropriate thing when you go there. So think, is this going to be suitable with the people that I'm meeting with? How can I be more respectful to their situation? Look for safety issues. Fallen or unstable buildings might still be a problem. Look for emergency services. Because your support, your presence, you trying to give psychological first aid should not disrupt emergency medical services. It should not disrupt people who are distributing food properly. I mean, that's another thing. And then even after a couple of days, you might encounter people who are seriously injured or trapped people. So look for all that. I mean, that's all part of providing psychological first aid. It's not only about their mind. And of course, look for people who are upset, who are showing signs of upset, anxiety, who are in a state of shock in a psychological sense. Look for people who need special assistance. Children, elderly, mobile people, they might need help. They might need special attention. Look for them as to who needs my support, who needs my help. or our health for that matter. And please, I remember again, I'm repeating some of these things because they really matter. Crisis situations can and they will change rapidly, much, much faster than we expect or anticipate. And what you encounter may be different from what you learned, what you did your studies, what you prepared for. So always take some time and scan the area, look around before you try to help. Be calm, be safe. I mean, that's crucial. And then think before you act. Am I being of help or am I trying to endanger myself? That's not going to be of help to anyone. I'm giving this in a table again. What dangers can you observe? And then will that harm you or can you be safe? And if it's dangerous, please do not go, especially if you're not trained to help in such situations. Communicate from a safer distance. Now, I mean, this is not going to be needed immediately, but I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks also. So whenever you go, your safety comes first. So please remember that. And then look for the people who need obvious help. And how can they be linked to other services? That's another important thing. People with special needs, think of them, including children, adolescents. Adolescents might look very strong physically, but psychologically, their reactions might be much more aggressive and then they might not be coping well with the situation. So pay attention to them. I repeat again from something that I mentioned earlier on. If someone is angry at you, if you feel so, if they're blackguarding, please do not take it personally. It's a way of expressing their distress. Help them calm down, be calm. And not taking that personally will be very helpful. I mean, I met some of the people who were just angry, they took X number of, bath packets and the people were angry, me the country and michara and all that. They get very aggressive and gosh, we came here to help and why are you so nasty? It's not being nasty. It's a way of express. So don't take things personally. And think of people who are at risk and discrimination, violence, because this can be a situation that things get bad for them. So this is about what you can see, what you can notice. And when we go to a place to support, there are normal reactions, especially in the aftermath of a disaster, reactions to crisis. So physical symptoms, you might see people crying and you might see people with complaining of headaches, tiredness, not wanting to eat, complaints about aches and pains, and sometimes you don't see that they're injured or anything, but then they complain. Fear and anxiety in some people, crying, sad, and feeling guilty that they are alive. I mean, that's a very, very common thing. And these are normal things after such situation. You might be questioning, why am I alive when my entire family is not here? How did I survive and why? Do I deserve this? Maybe about the people whom they could not save. Or sometimes you might feel people are happy. And some feedback I got, when people want to talk and be there, supporting with psychological first aid and listening to them. There have been some people who were displaced and lost everything, said අපිට බැරිද සින්දුවක් දාලා පොඩ්ඩක් dance කරන්න. And that's not what you expect maybe. But people may express their situation, their grief, their reactions to crisis might be different. And these are all normal. Elation and having survived or being jumpy and being on guard. I mean, little children might be afraid of the rainy season again, might be afraid of water. And things to watch out when they are normal. Anger, irritability, I mentioned this. No, I said these are normal reactions, though painful, of course. Then we have signs to be concerned about. If you see people who are withdrawn and immobile, or disoriented, not knowing, probably not even who they are, what's my name or what happened, what might have a blank spot as to what happened during that time, or not responding to others, or speaking at all, maybe children, maybe adults. Sort of emotionally numb and confused, feeling as if they're in a daze, not connected to the real world, and very serious when they can't take care of themselves, or parents or adults who can't take care of their children. So not eating, not drinking, not be able to make simple decisions even, may seem lost. These are especially people whom we should take care of, that whom we should pay attention to when we notice them. And very important thing to remember, not all these people are going to develop mental health disorders. Most people will recover over time, especially if they are given the basic support, the presence of another person like you, providing psychological first aid and being there for them. That's a crucial thing that will help people overcome the initial stage of distress and rebuild life. So most of the people will not develop mental health disorders, not have post-traumatic stress disorder like symptoms, especially with the sort of support that people like you and I can provide by being there with the knowledge of psychological first aid. And of course, there will be some people who may need more support. And that's a small group of people. But at this moment, when you go, try not to mix up counseling or long-term support with psychological first aid. That can be a next step. Let's focus on psychological first aid at this moment. Let's come to the second stage. So that's look what we can observe and how we can support people as the first step. And then we come to listen. Approaching people respectfully, that's making contact. Not everyone will want to talk to us. That's okay. That's totally normal and okay. Introduce yourself, who you are. And this doesn't have to be a formal. It's not a counseling session where you would have a certain angle, a distance, and then like a seated position, like a seating area with enough privacy. No, that might not be the case. Your helping might happen while having some food together, while just being seated, while organizing a room filled with donations and chaotic situation, chaotic environment. Just while sweeping or while cleaning, help them clean up and all that. So while doing all these things, be respectful and then introduce Mama Havala, I'm so and so. If you went with an organization, you can say, look, I came with them. And just be there. Ask if they want to talk. They might, as you like to introduce, they might start talking or just keep on and then help the people feel comfortable. If needed, especially water might be a very, very important thing, or sometimes maybe just a blanket, especially in the night, or sort of thing, if things are available. And most importantly, to make sure that they feel safe, especially little children and vulnerable people. That's one of the biggest concerns. Am I safe? Am I safe anymore? These are people who probably lost their house within few minutes or even seconds. So that's very important. Ask about the needs and concerns. You might think certain things are obvious, but it's always good to ask. Do you need some water? Can I get you some food? And ask what are their priorities. You might think, well, all of them need water. No, maybe not. Maybe it's more important for them to find their loved ones, the only person who is especially if they're in a camp-like situation, in a shared living space, they might need their loved ones around near them. And they might be very upset because their child has gone further away and playing with some other kids. Or maybe the other way around. The child might be very upset because the father or mother cannot be seen. So ask them what is more important to them and try to help them with that. And, in this listening process, you'll be helping them being calm, to become calm by staying calm. Stay close to the person as in a way that they feel comfortable. So knowing that distance, please look so that, watching them, looking at their body language. Are they feeling comfortable as you sit with them or as you work with them, as you walk with them? It may be various activities that you do. How comfortable are they? They don't have to tell their entire story. They don't have to tell exactly what happened. Listen to what they have to say without pressurizing them to say what happened. Mukadune. That's one of the worst questions that you can ask, because they keep on repeating the same thing, especially how their loved ones died, if that has been the case, or how they lost probably their belongings. They might share, but we don't have to put pressure on that. That's not going to be helpful unless they want to share. And if they are very distressed, help them feel calm. Maybe a simple breathing exercise. We are not going to do it because I don't know what the context that you are in, but please try to Google up on something called box breathing, a breathing technique that helps you. It's one of the simplest things that you can do without being a psychologist or a counselor. Something that you can practice for yourself even when you are anxious. To inhale or breathe in for maybe 4 seconds or 6 seconds, 6 counts or 4 counts. You can decide what works for you. And various people some will say I can only stay for 3 seconds. That's fine. There's no hard and fast rule on this, but 4 seconds and hold for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. It completes the square, or the box. Google this up and try to practice this. This is one of the simplest things that you could do. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. So help them calm down. Just your presence, your calm presence, of course, is going to be helpful. So your tone of voice. They might be angry. You don't have to be angry. That's not the helping strategy. So your calmness is going to be helpful. I'm repeating these things so that knowing very, very, very consciously aware that it's a short program and you will remember only a few things. Maintain some eye contact so that they feel connected, as opposed to you being even afraid to look at them, because it will show as to how worried you are. And reassure them that they are safe and that you are, and many others are there to help. And let them feel. So this is another activity that you could do. But some people might feel unreal. Some people might feel like, what am I doing? So let them feel what's around them. Feel their feet on the floor. Tap their hands on the laps. Do it. You will feel that connection to the here and now, to this moment. To notice a few things in their surrounding. You can ask them to even, especially children, if you're working with them, to name a few things that are around them. They might say, okay, I see people, chairs, whatever, clothes, food, to name a few things, and to focus on their breath. Once again, box breathing might be a useful thing. Helping people to connect to the here and now so that they are not living in the past, not living in that crisis moment, and then to help them be grounded. We'll skip this slide because I want to cover, but of course, in a much longer training, we can look at these things. These are things that I already mentioned, communication do's and don'ts. So I'll share the slide deck once again. Please go through. The next L, we may spoke of 3 L's. Look, listen, link after preparation. Linking is very important because psychological first aid is a brief time activity. You don't have all the time in the world to work with them. So linking is very important because it will help them address their basic needs, help them cope with the problem, get necessary information, and connect with people, especially loved ones, and of course, social support. So linking with basic needs, where can they fulfill these basic needs? Where can they get water, food, shelter? These are important things. Whom to talk to? Maybe they are in a place and they don't know where they know that water and food gets distributed, but if they want something, they might not know where to get it from. So linking them with those basic needs is very important. And even after going home, people sometimes talk like during the shelter time, we had the supplies coming in, but now I don't know where to get it from, and they've now gone home and they don't have any equipment, any utensils that can help them prepare any food. So how can I reach out to people and get this support? And be very careful not to promise things that you cannot do. Sometimes as people, we feel obliged to give them promises saying, okay, I'll check it out for you and I'll give you the information. And then it doesn't happen because humanly you probably can't do it. So if you promise, please make sure to follow up. If not, do not promise. Give them the information so that they can follow up. Because if not, what will happen is they'll be waiting for you while you have simply forgotten, because you'll be meeting so many people sometimes when you go to a place where there are a lot of people, and you might genuinely forget. But they will not forget. They'll be waiting for your information. So please do not promise things that you cannot deliver. That's very important. And help people to cope up with problems. They might be lost and they might be in a situation like, how do I even organize my thoughts? So prioritizing urgent needs, whom to contact, what agency should I talk to? Where should I go to? Which office? Where is it? Or where can I get maybe water or food aid? All that's information. So helping them to cope up with their basic needs, their problem situation might be helpful. Maybe you're writing it down for them or writing it with them might be a useful thing. Or like, entering it into their phones if they have them will be very useful. Maybe like, contact numbers and all that. That's going to provide help. And then positive coping strategies. This is not only for them, it's for us also. Very important things like getting enough sufficient rest. Sometimes people like to talk about it later and right, genuinely get a good feeling. I've been working for 2 days continuously without getting sufficient rest, and you might feel good at that moment with all the adrenaline rushing in, trying to protect you, but it will not keep you in your best state. So try to get sufficient rest, and of course that's something you can encourage the others also, people whom you meet, especially help people who are providing help as much as people who are receiving. Getting sufficient food and water, talking and spending time with family and friends. As much as that's important for them, it's important for you. Keep contacts with your family and friends, especially if you go out of Colombo, if you go out of your area, if you go out of your home to help others. They might be worried. They might want to know that you're okay. So please do not forget. Don't say, I'm working and don't bother about me, don't worry about me. Especially if you're living with your parents, with your husbands, with your wives, or like if you have children at home, make sure to make a call and say that okay. And this is something you can encourage people whom you talk to also. Relax. And people sometimes feel it's bad to sing, and it's sometimes even if some children start singing and dancing, people say, how can you do this in the midst of this disaster? But it might be a very good coping strategy. So if you can organize it, even that's even better, so that people engage with these things that will help their body and mind to relax. And avoiding drugs, or sometimes too much caffeine or coffee or tea might be a very useful thing. Of course, alcohol and other drugs to avoid. Hygiene, personal hygiene is important as a helper and also to anyone. And making sure the support that you give is safe, and encourage people to help others also, even when they think now I'm the recipient, and rather than letting them be the recipient and helpless, there are little things that every one of us can do. So encourage them to do that. Maybe give them little responsibility. Okay, can you just be with this person, talk to him, or play with this group of children. Those are very useful things where people feel positive and their spirits lift up. So give them those opportunities as much as you take them. But that's exactly what you are doing. It's not that you don't have any problems, but by helping, it helps us also rebuild as people, as individuals, as groups. And link people towards information. Find accurate information before helping. So that's a very important. Before you give information, make sure that the information is correct to the best of your knowledge. Check with someone else. Boru kiyante epa, boru vistara dente epa. That's not going to help. So be very, very, very careful with the information that you give. And it's important to be updated. Stale news or stale information is not going to help anyone. Keep updated. That's very important. And give information as to where support can be gathered, where they can get support, where they can get information. Don't make up information just because you have to give something, just because you have to answer. Please, it's okay to say, I don't know. Let me try to find out. That's very important. Try to give accurate information so that there are no rumors going around. But that's one danger that could happen: false information. And then whenever you get information, try to give the source. That gives credibility, that adds credibility. And if you don't know, or whenever you get new information, update. That's crucial. So linking to information is very, very important. And then linking to social support, keeping families together, children with caregivers, or parents with children, parents with adult children, especially old adults. That's very important. So making sure those communities are supporting each other. So the social support can be very important. Religious support, access to religious support is another thing. You might be the most, you must be a most atheist person on earth, but in the face of crisis, most people will revert to some sort of beliefs. So respect that and encourage that. Not to people like, okay, you need to start praying. That's not the thing what I'm saying. But if they want to, give them those options. Bring people together where they help each other. And then make sure that people know how to access services, especially vulnerable people. And these are few useful telephone numbers, and this gets shared almost everywhere. But these are some useful numbers. I mean, I know though ideally it's good if services can be provided in all three languages. I know at certain times some of these numbers will not be able to support people in all three languages, especially with Tamil language. But even with these limitations, these are some of the helplines that you might want to take a screenshot of. And then finally, no matter what how good your intentions are to stay for a long time, I started by saying this is different from counseling. And even counseling should definitely come to an end at one point, but that is okay, let's say it's a much more long-term thing. Psychological first aid is definitely a short-term thing. So ending your assistant, knowing how to end is very important. Use your best judgment as to when you can leave the person. So address the needs that they have, and then at one point, you got to leave. And sometimes it's about your need to leave also. So please explain, especially if you happen to stay for a day or two in a particular place, helping the community, helping children, helping adults. You need to be very clear that you got to leave. And if possible, introduce them to the next team who will come. Introduce them to a new group of volunteers. That will keep the help, that will keep the good work that you've done continue. So that's very, very important. And if you link them to with services, be sure that they have contact details. I mean, sometimes you might be the link between the services and the recipients. And once you are taken out of the equation, there's no connectivity, there's no connection. So please share that information. And no matter what the experience, no matter what the situation, make sure you wish them good luck when you leave. Give them hope, and hope takes people a long way. So these, be honest. Don't say man I'll come back. Don't give those false promises. Be honest that you are going to leave, and then I know you like to share contact details, but it's best not to share your contact details with the people, but link them with the support in their community, people whom they can get support from, rather than letting them rely on you alone. You might want to be available, but you might not be. It might not be practically possible for you to be there for all the people that you meet. So rather than giving your contact details for emergencies, please link them with the available services in their community of the places that they can get help, rather than making them dependent on you. So that's a very important point that I want to say as you end your support. And you need to take care of yourself at the beginning as well as at the end of every round of services, volunteering work that you do. Ask yourself, how am I feeling after what I've heard, after what I have witnessed? Ask yourself, how am I coping with myself? And get help. I've had situations like after talking to people and after listening to all their stories, after seeing what they've gone through, I felt like, I'm not myself anymore. And talking to someone and getting their support has been very, very useful. So please be responsible for yourself and get support when needed. It's not weakness. And a point to remember, it takes much more strength and courage to ask for help rather than to hide it. And asking for help and getting help is the way forward. So just as that's the case for others, it is the case for us as helpers also. So PFA in a snapshot. I don't know if this is not the glamorous thing some of you wanted. It's not counseling first and foremost, but it has very, very solid evidence to say it. If PFA, psychological first aid, is provided, most people will not need psychological counseling later on. So to do that, prepare the look, listen, and link people to support. Link people with loved ones, link people with information, and people have the ability to recover. People have the ability to grow from the worst situation that they can grow from the depths of hell, to say. And people have done that. It's that human contact, it's that human support that takes them a long way. Look, listen, link. With that, let me finish this presentation on psychological first aid. It's a very, very basic introduction. If this was a long, half a day program, we'd have done some role play so that you practice how to do active listening, which is very important, how to give information and all that. And if there's a need, I'm very happy to do that with some of my colleagues and, help you train yourself further. But I wanted to give this information to make sure that you understand what psychological first aid is and how you can help, and that this is something that will and that can help people who need support. All right, so that's